Welcome to Artcasters, episode 430. Been doing this for a long time. And just to dispel any rumors, I was not the sacrifice at the art retreat weeks ago. Uh, I had somebody comment and say on the most recent video, "Oh, you're here. We thought you might have been dead." So we'll get into all that. But let's do intros really quick. Sam says, "I don't believe you." Yeah, you're seeing my ghost AI apparition. I uploaded my consciousness and it projects this image on live streams now.
We pre-recorded Corey before this and told him what to say. We're like, you're on Artcasters 2 weeks from now. You're fine. And he's like, I'm fine, guys.
Oh, that's funny. Sam says I'm a skinwalker. I'm reading a book right now. That has skinwalkers in it, and they're super creepy.
Oh, yeah, skinwalker idea is scary, man.
Yeah. So you can catch my stuff at CoreyCurr.com, and we'll talk more about things I've done and I'm doing today. But if you want to get a free comic, free 4-page comic that I wrote and illustrated, then you can go to CoreyCurr.com/email and sign up for the email newsletter. Get a free comic there. It'll be awesome. And yeah. So Josh, where can we find your stuff?
All right. You can find my stuff at joshuakemble.com. You can find my stuff in bookstores by buying books like Jacob's Apartment, which when I had family visiting the other week or two ago, I was at Barnes & Noble, and I kept walking by the comics section hoping they would look. And they didn't. And so finally I just pulled it on. I'm such like egotist. I pulled it off the shelf and was like, isn't that crazy that's right here? And they're like, oh, your book's here. I was like, awesome. That's not the reaction I was hoping for. I thought they'd just go by there and be like, that's amazing. But yeah, so you can find that book at bookstores and then 2 stories. Sorry, Corey.
Do you go sign them in the bookstores?
The local copies, I have, yes.
Yeah.
But I haven't been out of town to bookstores enough to know, so.
Yeah. If I had a book in a bookstore, every time I went there, I would just get it and just dance around for a few minutes.
I always see Dave Baker's post because he has like really good distribution on a lot of his books, and he's always posting like, "Oh, I stopped by the store and signed books." But I remember a friend of mine had done that when they had a release, and they got in like big trouble. And they're like, "But I wrote the book like I thought it was," and they were like, "No, you can't write in the books in the store." And it's like, anyhow. So,
that's funny.
Yeah.
I know a few authors that covertly do that, and then when they leave, they're like, "Hey, I signed all the copies in this bookstore," and people go rush that bookstore and go buy them all. So
yeah, usually it's a good thing, but it is funny where like I had never thought that there would be a store that's like really pissed about it. How dare you write in books? But I wrote the book,
I imagine that's got to be one of the giant corporations that gets mad about that.
Probably. Or just like an employee who's not like aware of like that upping the value of the book.
Yeah. Scott, where can we find your stuff?
You can find my stuff at circworks.com. You can where you can find my comic book Young and the Dead. It's a kids versus zombie adventure story, just like Goonies meets Night of the Living Dead. That sounds interesting. Pick up a copy and or 2. There's 5 issues available. Also, I've got a YouTube channel, Circworks Art Labs on YouTube, where I will be having. I got a new video that's coming out next week that I'm super excited about. But if you're on my Patreon, you've probably already seen it because you guys patrons get the early preview of those videos. So
all right,
you can join my Patreon. I think it's Circworks on Patreon. Circworks or Circworks Art Labs. I don't know. I'm sure you can find it. But yeah, so that's where you can find all my stuff. Oh yeah, and like Corey, I also have a Substack, and I've been posting on there fairly regularly, more than any other social media, as far as their notes part. And then of course, every month they send out a couple newsletters or so, 1 or 2. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Scott, I just see Scott circling for Patreon, but maybe
that's probably what it is. Yeah, I think it's Scott circling. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Cool. Cool. So, a bit of a meandering topic, but I figured since I was MIA for a month, 3 weeks, was it 3 episodes? I think it was 3 episodes. We kind of jump back in, and I just did 3,200 miles in the car with a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old and a 14-year-old and my wife, and so we didn't go all the way.
Kids, just some random kids.
How many times did you have to do the? Are we gonna have to pull this car around?
None times, because
amazing.
Because anytime we drove more than 8 hours, I just drove through the night, and so we're just like, all right, everybody, we'll go to sleep, and then I put in an audiobook and I just drive for 12 to 14 hours. So yeah. Anyway, it was too much traveling. So. And we're not done. I have a family reunion this weekend that I'm going to, and Maddox and Malia are going to go and meet Maddox's biological parents.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's cool. It'll be fun and scary, but mostly fun. And yeah. Anyway, so lots of traveling. But what I wanted to talk about is, and Josh, you can jump in. You've had fairly significant changes recently as well. I feel like anytime there's major changes, like the last 2 semesters were probably 2 of the worst semesters I've had in the 10 years that I've been teaching. And so I like kind of, 6 to 8 months ago, I was like, all right, I'm going to like get back into shape. I had the accident a few years ago and I'm way out of shape. So I was going to get back in shape, but it was just so stressful at work, and I was putting in so many overtime hours and everything that I was like, we're going to have to wait till the end of this. And then the next semester blew up, and anyway, the upcoming semester seems to be like a normal semester. So I think I'm going to get back into that. And the rare opportunity that teachers have is we get a little bit of time off. So I've got a few more weeks before I have to go back to work. And anyway, so I just kind of want to talk about, like, I've been out of it. I think this is the first thing I've drawn since I don't think I've drawn anything this semester. So in the last 3 months ish. Anyway, which is a lot. That's a long time for me to not draw. I've been writing a book by way of trying to stay creative, but have it be less taxing than illustration. Not to downplay writers or anything, but I think for me at least, I think it's different for everybody. Writing is significantly easier than drawing. So anyway, so I got 11 chapters of my book done since I started doing that, but I've only drawn one thing. So I want to get back into drawing. I am on day 4 of consistently lifting weights, so I'm very sore, but I'm like getting back into that routine. Anyway, so I just kind of wanted to talk, like, what do you guys do when you get when your life gets disrupted and you want to get back into things? I thought that might be kind of an interesting topic.
I love it. I know that's fresh on my mind. Scott, I don't know if there was something you wanted to chime in with first.
No, go ahead.
Okay. For me, what's been interesting is I just got hired full time at a local Union high school district as an art teacher, and so I'm teaching 6 periods of no prep period of Art 1, which is actually a blessing in disguise. Corey can attest to this. I think part of why Corey had such a rough time with teaching the last semester was he had to prepare for, I can't even remember how many classes, but he had to prepare different lesson plans for like a bunch of different classes. How many was it?
I had five different preps.
Yeah.
One of those classes I was writing it as I was going, and another one I had never taught before. So
yeah, so that's a lot to juggle.
And I will say, Sam, who's in the chat, he has now graduated. He is awesome. He was my TA and was an absolute lifesaver during that
Nice.
semester. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard teaching that many different things.
So for me, like being able to teach six periods of one class is really cool compared to like my teaching experience the last like year or so, where I've had to like prep for a class I didn't major in that I'm teaching, or prep for 3 classes that I didn't major in, and 2 of those classes were from 2 different teachers, so they were both at different eras in world history, and so I had to basically, yeah. So that's been nice, where it's a lot of work, a lot of last minute preparation, but it's something I know like the back of my hand, so it's like pretty easy to do intro to art stuff. Like we're gonna do the classic Picasso the upside down man, and then we're gonna get into contour line, and then start kind of transitioning into like 2-point perspective, and then probably talk about like shape and then value, and work our way into like color theory and stuff, which you should do. Kind of, it's like a survey course, but that is a lot of prep work, but it's stuff I know really, and I can kind of pull out real easily. And so like I'm pretty caught up. I'm a couple days ahead, which is pretty good for the position I'm in. But it is a change, and one thing I've had to accept since the semester started, it's been about a month, was that I have to change my comic making time, because throughout the week, if I start doing pages for Not Death But Love, I'm gonna burn out fast. And so I think for me it was kind of reframing. This is just me answering like Corey's thing. That was hard for me to deal with at first, because I, like Corey, am an overly productive, overly creative person. And so I have, in the last 2 months, written and recorded, I think I'm at 48 songs now.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, no, 47 songs. So I'm 3 shy of another album. And I'm having that creative output, and I'm putting that in 15 minutes a day of just recording music, letting the songs kind of write themselves, almost like a similar approach to Corey's writing, where he's like writing the chapters as they go, kind of ending his ideas. And but it feels like I'm cheating, because I'm not getting the pages done. And also I have a publishing deal for that, so I have to get the pages done. And what I realized this week was I'm not going to make that fight to do my comic daily. I have to reframe that, and I actually have to do counterintuitively the thing that I've always said not to do, which is to binge. Like basically it's going to be like a weekend thing. Like on Saturdays, I'm just going to have to hit it hard and hit the pavement running, and treat it like it's a 9 to 2 a.m. job. And actually, I think that'll keep me kind of sane and focused there. The one thing I also did, because I've been dealing with so much transition, and Scott knows, like we've all been dealing with like a lot of weird changes and stuff the last few years. But for me, it was like I also realized, having had complete burnout a couple of years back, I can't repeat that. So for me, exercise is like a non-negotiable, and I've kept it a non-negotiable. Even tonight, like tonight's, I do every other day, free weights, and rowing, and I've been really consistent with it, and I'm going to stay consistent with that. So that's actually helped me. The fact that I've been doing that, it keeps me really calm with like flexible changes and stuff. I don't know why, but exercise like keeps me really like centered the next day.
Exercise keeps me really in pain and sore.
That's
so far.
That goes well, Corey, though, like that kind of goes away after.
I know
you're in that like where I was a couple months back because I had taken a little time off and recognized like, oh yeah, I gotta kind of.
I could be wrong, but I think Scott never stops exercising. Do you ever fall off the wagon, Scott, or are you pretty consistent?
I'm fairly consistent.
Yeah, because I feel like since I've known you, you've always been running several times a week. And
Yeah.
I mean, you're working a job right now that you're getting paid to work out, which is cool.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I was very consistent in my teens because I was a 3-sport athlete, and so that was year round. Old guys screaming at me to work out, which is a great motivator, to not get screamed at. And then in my 20s, I was just very active. I was rock climbing 3 or 4 times a week, and then haven't mid 30 to now, the last 10 years have not been great. But every time I start, I get really into a rhythm and then something disruptive happens. And so I feel like I'm tempting fate. But at this point, I've got to do something or I'm going to be unhealthily out of shape. And so I mean, I was really, lifting consistently, got into a rhythm. I got to the point where it didn't hurt anymore. And it was just, it was that kind of good discomfort, but not pain anymore. And I was really feeling it. And then COVID hit and I went from standing and teaching to sitting and teaching, and my body just got destroyed. And so then I had to do a bunch of physical therapy to fix my back and stuff. And then I got back into it again, and I was working out again, and I was pretty consistent, hit it. And then I crashed my motorcycle and punctured my lung and broke 7 ribs and snapped my collarbone in 2 places. And then after a year of PT and recovery and whatever, I was like, okay, I'm just going to go on some walks. And so I was walking every day, and I was getting my heart rate up, going on brisk walks as fast as I could, which at the time, and then I got COVID, and then I got and then I got pneumonia, and then I got pneumonia again, and then I got a lung abscess. And then anyway, I remember this. I know it's just but it seems to always be right after I settle into an exercise routine.
Once you get a rhythm. Yeah.
So
no, I've noticed.
So if I get hit by a bus, next week, you'll know why. It's because I tempted fate and tried to start lifting weights again.
Yeah, I've noticed that, Corey. I don't think for you, so I fall out of my rhythm a little bit, and the only reason I am able to recognize it is I spent all the way up to my mid 30s just not working out at all. And a good chunk of that, smoking cigarettes, and so I was not a health, person at all. And so it all started for mental health and out of necessity, just because you reach a certain age and you start noticing if you don't work out, my back hurts more. And there's little things like that. So I'll fall off for a week or two and then have to remind myself and that's part of why I stay kind of almost religious about it. Cause I'm if I miss a day, I know myself, it becomes, a month. And so, but if I was getting in that flow state and being really good at self-discipline and stuff like that, and then got hit by a car, right, or something, it's pretty reasonable that's going to throw off your rhythm. Because I even remember after that motorcycle, you actually were trying to get back in the rhythm pretty quickly after that and hurting yourself more.
I got some very bad advice in the emergency room.
Yeah.
They said, I said, so what am I allowed to do and not do? And they're like, oh, your body will tell you. So,
but not knowing that your tolerance for pain is
right. Yeah, they did. Yeah. So I had a broken collarbone, and then I had 7 broken ribs, and I had I had a milk jug full of water, a gallon, and I was laying in bed so swinging, and it made it so much worse that the bone almost came out of the skin. Yeah. So anyway, they came in and they're like, "What are you doing?" And it's like my body hasn't stopped me. I can still do this. They're like, "No, you don't." I was doing that for days.
Yeah. They didn't realize Corey's from a bloodline where they're like, "What pain level are you at?" And it's it's like right. Giving birth level pain, and he's like, maybe a 2. And if you're talking to Corey and he says it's a 2, that's a serious condition.
I feel like I have a. I saw a skit once, one of those reels or something, and it was this nurse walked in and said, this farmer came in, and the doctor was like, a farmer came in? And yeah. And he said his pain is, I asked him to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. And he said, I'm here, ain't I? And he was like, that man needs to go to the emergency room now. It's like, you don't even know what's wrong with him. He's like, no, he's a farmer. And he came in. Anyway, I feel like that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know. Don't ask me to rate my pain. The fact that I showed up,
yeah,
that should tell you something.
Too. Like I went to like one of those I don't know what you call them, test studies or whatever, where they, to test pain and medication, they pulled my wisdom teeth for free in order to see, test this. And, so I got them pulled for free, and I'm like, okay.
That, by the way, which is one of the most painful things on the planet, the aftermath of wisdom teeth removal.
I had a dry socket get infected after my wisdom teeth were out, and my face swelled up like 2 or 3 inches. It was horrendous.
I still haven't had mine out. I haven't had to.
You're more wise than Scott and I are.
My wife was like chipmunked, and it was like a brutal 3 months recovery kind of thing.
It's terrible.
That does not look fun.
So what happened, Scott?
What happened?
So afterwards, I'm sitting there, and then they want you to wait a little bit, and then they said, when the pain gets too much, we'll give you the medicine. And I'm waiting. I'm sitting in the room, and I was probably about, I don't know, I was probably the cutoff like around 40 or something. Most of the people in there were younger kids, teenagers, and or probably over 18, around that. You probably had to be over 18. But anyway.
So this was kids. Like last week, Scott, because you're such a young, spry man.
So I'm sitting there. I might have been under 40, but I was close to 40. But anyway, so I'm just kind of sitting there waiting, and it's uncomfortable, Yeah. But it's not like excruciating pain. And so they come and say, so on this just chart 1 to 10, 1 being no pain at all, 10 being worst pain imaginable. And so I'm thinking worst pain imaginable, man, like getting burned alive or something like that.
See, that is the problem.
It's the wrong question to ask a writer. Okay? Don't ask a creative. Is this the worst pain you can imagine? It's like, dude, my imagination stretches pretty far.
I don't think you know. I can imagine worse than I've experienced, and I've experienced a lot. I think being flayed alive, or like the blood eagle. There's a ton of things that would be excruciatingly
that torture
painful.
Device in Japan, that's the spike they'd have people sit on. I don't know.
Being impaled.
That bad? No, I don't know.
Yeah, the worst pain you can imagine.
Yeah, so I might have said like a 2 or something. I'm like, it was uncomfortable. I'm like, I'm kind of like grinning and bearing it and everything. And then, so they asked me again, and it's probably, I don't know, maybe a 3 or so. So apparently you had to be at least over a 5 before they give you the medication. And then later, so everyone else is already taking the medication, they're all like, I'm at an 8 or a 9 or whatever, and so they go, you must have a pretty high threshold for pain. And I said, I don't know, maybe. And they said, yeah, we gotta let you, we gotta kind of release you, because you're just not at that point where we can test you for the medicine. So
wow.
Yeah,
that's so funny. I do wonder if that's why, though, because that is actually a really interesting thought of maybe some people who say 10 just lack imagination.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right? Yeah. So I one time had a viral infection in my brain, and it caused my brain to start swelling up and push against the inside of my skull.
Oh my God.
It was this sounds like I'm exaggerating, but I'm not. It was like, when there's too much power and circuits trip electrically. Mm-hmm. My entire consciousness, except I would stay awake, but I would stop processing input every time I tried to think. Malia would come in and say, how are you doing? And trying to come up with the words to answer her question.
Yeah.
Shorted my head out. It was so painful. It was like a sensory deprivation level of pain.
Yeah.
So when and I think that there's probably worse, but that's the organ that I use to process my stimulus.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when somebody says to me what's the worst pain you could imagine? And I'm like, Well, I know what my 10 is, and it's
Yeah.
like my brain pushing against the inside of my skull with inflammation. So, but I can imagine worse than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd always be worse.
Because I don't think I have a super high threshold for pain, but
Yeah.
I don't know. But I mean, and then they said something about some usually like older people. They said they've just been through a lot, so whereas some of the younger people haven't. But
Sure.
but like I definitely, I mean, if I go on an airplane and I don't take like if I'm not chewing gum or I don't take like a whatever the medicine, I think it's Benadryl, something like that, or Sudafed, something. If I don't take that, like sometimes I just get this like excruciating pain,
Oh,
like
the
somebody's
migraines.
drilling, just somebody's just drilling in my head, and I get migraines and stuff too, but yeah, so
I feel like I'm not trying to one up everybody, but like that reminds me.
We if
No, no,
without you even saying something.
Yeah, I think Corey, your life has one up all
I-
of us.
But I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that guy that's like, oh yeah, no. It's you saying that reminded me of a story, and I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying it
Compare
reminded
them.
me of
Just
it.
be like, oh yeah, you
No,
know
so-
that pain.
So, when I went skydiving, I didn't know that you needed to clear nasal passages, and so I had a bloody nose from a different thing. Because I don't think I broke my nose that morning, but it was bloodied, and so I think some blood dried in somewhere in there, and so I was able to, on the slow ascent in the plane, I was able to like acclimate, but in the quick fall I wasn't able to like decompress, and so I just had like 7,000 foot elevation pressure at like sea level for like 2 days. It hurt really bad. Anyway,
You know what's crazy? Okay, we're totally. I mean, I don't even know what our topic. I think this is our topic, isn't it? But that reminds me. Like, so my dad was like spent a lot of his like young, early, like late teens, like early adulthood, like trying to do all the right steps so he could become a pilot. Like that was his initial dream.
yeah.
And so he did like ROTC, and he was like like did all sorts of volunteering, and like so then he took the test to be like to see if he could be a pilot, and his nose bled in the test, and they were like, yeah, you never can fly. Like if that, because that's like one of the key things is like if you get nosebleeds at that height, you're gonna die. Like you'll die in a jet plane because you got a helmet on and you've got blood flying all. You're done.
Right.
So,
yeah.
but anyhow, that reminded me of that. So you had to kind of change course and be like, I'll just do architecture and graphic design and stuff. But the transition thing is interesting to me in the sense of it's been hard. One thing I've been getting better with this year, and I'm still struggling with like learning this, but I had to learn it kind of the hard way from the incident like 2 years ago, right? Where I had a slippy sock vacation. It's kind of being okay with letting some plates fall. Like like you're juggling a ton of plates, and inevitably in life, there's just times where all those plates are not going to stay in the air. And that's for I think overachievers, that can be really hard to be okay with being like even with the comic thing, for me to be like, I'm not actually going to do the like, because even just to keep my workout, to put in 15 minutes of music and stuff, and then my workout, and then the lesson plans, that's like, if I'm lucky, I'm in bed by like 1 a.m., right? And then I'm waking up at like 5:30. So it's like, where is the comic going to fit in there? But the part of me that wants to juggle everything is like, well, I mean, I could do like 1:30 to like 3. It's like, what, and run on 2 hours of sleep a day? Like, that's not going to work. So I have to kind of readjust my own self expectations with stuff like that. And I think that's part of it too, is like just kind of realizing like there's just going to be seasons where you have to kind of move some stuff. Yeah, Jim was saying when he was counting stacks of hundreds, he got a paper cut and powered through it. Yeah, Jim gets a lot of injuries from his millions. And it can be really heavy. All those stacks too
Yeah.
of cash that Jim is just carrying around with him.
Yeah, Jim lives by that code. When people pay you in cash, you don't tell the government. So
Yeah.
he's like a Ron Swanson, just sitting on stacks of
Yeah.
of
At the
stacks,
artist retreat, when we all woke up in the morning, Jim would be up in the morning just bench pressing, piles of gold and cash. And he's like, "Oh, hey guys," and it's like all monogrammed, like it in money clips that all say Luhan on them.
It also seems like we've got several people that practice martial arts in the chat. Everybody who does martial arts, leave a comment of what type. I'm kind of curious on that because I'm looking to get my kids into Krav Maga, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Scott and I come from the Shaolin clan of yeah, that's our style of.
I was gonna say I'm not going to, but I think Mike Myers in So I Married an Axe Murderer describes the Scottish kung fu, and I feel like that's
I love that movie so much.
That movie is a documentary. I thought it was funny. I thought
he's gonna go to sleep on his wee little pillow.
I thought it was funny until I had lived there for 2 years, and I was like, oh, it's just Glasgow. It's just this is just. I mean, I even got beat up in the same way that he describes, just headbutting people and then kicking them when they're on the ground. That's just how they fight. Anyway, so I was a little bit of I just drove for more than 50 hours. And so I had a lot of thinking time. One of the things that I thought was I've been very productive in the last few years, but I don't know if I really accomplish what I want to. And so now I'm kind of revisiting, like I've done a lot of client work, which has been very helpful because my house has blown up several times, and we haven't gone into debt for a lot of the emergencies that have happened, which is nice, and I'm very grateful for. But if I look back at the major things that I've accomplished in the last couple of years, it's animations and illustrations for other people and not for me. And so now I'm like rethinking it. I'm like, I want to, like, I don't care about that stuff. Like, it's cool. I learned some things and I did some neat tricks and they look good or whatever. And it paid for stuff, which is nice. But then I'm like, but I don't have a project that I can point at and say, but this is what I did and that I'm excited about. And so I'm trying to think of like where, I don't have a Young and the Dead, I don't have a 2 stories like, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a comic, but like the last thing that I did where it was longer was like Heart of Eternity. Yeah. No, was now I can't even remember the name of it. But I mean, it was the thing that I did several years ago that won a bunch of awards and stuff, and then I've done little micro things since then, but I haven't done like put your heart into it. Thanks. Yeah. Josh knows my catalog
and also
better than I do.
specs I'd call your own too.
Yeah. That one didn't turn out in a cool, way though. That it is interesting. I don't.
That's always what you want to hear when you show art to people.
That's
our favorite thing to hear. It's like, what do you think of this? That's interesting.
The point of that project was to collaborate with students.
Yeah.
And I would say that's also the downfall of that project was I collaborated with students because it's not. The pacing is off. It gets a little boring in the middle. Nobody really understood, and this is probably on me not explaining it well, exactly what I meant by kind of like changing shades and things. And anyway, so it's fine, but it's like I don't even really
feel
mention
as much ownership on it. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm just kind of like it's good. A lot of people put some good work into it, and I hope it gets them jobs because it does look good, but it's.
No, I get you. But so the point is, it's been a while since you've done something that you feel like you fully own.
Yeah. I mean, Esoteric Crumble Flux was fun, and I'm proud of that. I've got a dozen or so fairly intense illustrations that with the essays that go along with them and things like that as well.
Yeah,
But
I think the exploration artistically was good too in those
yeah,
because you've leveled
definitely.
up a lot. Like, I
Yeah,
mean, you
for
are
sure.
always leveling up, but that I did notice like a noticeable like whoa, like jump from that
Yeah,
exploration.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it was really good for that. And then I think I'm gonna. So I guess part of the topic that I wanted to talk about, not just me, but with you guys as well. Um, like when you have these transitory periods where you're like able to kind of step back and go, okay, that's over now. What's going on? Or this has changed. How do I deal with the new change? Those types of things. You get to like triage, right? You get
Yeah,
to like look at things and say, okay, what are the plates they're going to drop to go with your analogy? What are the plates I'm going to keep in the air? And like family is always going to be one of the plates that you don't drop.
yep,
Like not losing your house.
yeah.
Like paying the bills, those types of things and
The
stuff like that.
non-negotiables always stay
Yeah,
it, but yeah. Mhm.
right. But then the next couple of things, that's where I don't know. I'm kind of curious. I don't know what I want is the issue. Like I've all but abandoned the mainstream social media because I am actively moving away from oligarchs, tech giants, and monopolies. And so, I've been looking at social media now, and the only ones I'm really posting on Substack, um, and a couple of other like Kara and some random ones,
Yeah.
Mastodon and stuff like that. But like I'm off of Twitter, I'm off of Facebook, I'm off of anyway YouTube if you count that as a social media.
Don't you mean
Um,
you're off of X?
X.
Sorry, it's the
No,
stupidest.
no, I left.
Still in my
I
mind, the
left.
stupidest rebranding ever.
I left Twitter. It became something else
Yeah,
after
yeah.
I left it. But yeah,
You know what?
I
Do you
left.
think that's why it was named X? They were like, "We're Corey's X."
That's it. It was so devastating to them to lose my account. I don't even know that they know I exist. But anyway, yeah. So like, I don't know. Like, I'd like people to read my book. I think it's good. I'd
Yeah.
like people, but I don't have any like big goals. Like, in the next 10 years, I want to have accomplished X, Y, or Z or whatever. I'm feeling a little rudderless, I think, at the
Mm.
moment, which isn't necessarily bad. I'm not down about it. I'm in an experimental phase. I'm not sure
Yeah, and
where I want to go.
you're observing it. And I even remember at the retreat, like initially, because it had been a while since you drew, there was like kind of an unlocking moment where it's almost like
Yeah.
and it's funny because we both teach art, but we also experience the stuff sometimes our students do, right? And we don't even realize it. Where it's like, you'll see it in an art class where a student's being like way too precious, and you almost want to just like splatter paint on what they're working on or something just to
Right.
get them
Yeah.
over that. I mean, you're obviously not going to do that, but my point is, you can recognize it in other artists where they're blocked and they just need to kind of flow with it. But it's so hard for us to recognize in ourselves. And for me, it was fun at the retreat to see you kind of get over that initial hesitation because I think it had just been a while since you drew, and then it was like boom, like suddenly unlocked. Um, so I wonder how much of that'll just happen like naturally by the exploration of art again,
Yeah.
um, or how much of it's just transition. I don't know. Like Scott, like how about you? Because you've gone through some wild changes in the last few years. How have you kind of managed to kind of keep a rudder amid it, or have you gotten like off course and kind of had to
Oh yeah.
reset? How do you navigate that?
I don't know. I'm all over the place. It's like I kind of just
You're on a speedboat.
some.
Just
I mean, I've got like larger goals of things I want to do. For
yeah,
instance, like I haven't really worked on. I'm so close to the end of like Young and the Dead, and I haven't really worked on it for a little bit because then I just got it in my head. Oh, I'm gonna make some more trading cards, so I've been doing those, and then kind of like a block. Like I'm gonna do this many trading cards, and
yeah,
then I'm gonna switch back to something else, and then I'm constantly trying to figure out what I want to do with my YouTube channel. To the point where do I want to change the format? It's all I don't know. I'm all over the place. So
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't typically like abandon things. I just like kind of push them back. So, but I can't work on the same thing for very long.
Mm.
Other than, I mean, say like in a week, like I know I've got a big goal that I want for my YouTube. I want to get so many videos out, but like
Yeah.
if I'm sort of in the middle, if I just put out a video, then I'm like, oh, I'm going to switch to doing this, So I sold a few, I started selling some more trading cards, and I'm like, oh, that was fun. I'm going to do some more of those. So I did that. And, now I'm kind of focusing a little bit on Substack and looking at what do I do to build that. And so it's just a bunch of different things. But now I'm kind of itching to get back to my comic just because I haven't worked on it since a little bit after the street. So
how's Substack going for you, Scott? I've been meaning to ask you that because I've noticed that you're pretty active on there.
Yeah, I've been posting. I've been making a goal to post every day, but there's a lot of things, and I might even like touch base with you on another call and kind of figure some stuff out. And I did read the one. There was that article you sent me. I read through that, and there's certain things that I haven't been like restacking or anything yet, and I haven't been. But I'm getting more people commenting and everything, and that's kind of like the beginning stages. I know there's a lot more that I can do, so it's just kind of a gradual. Right now, my main focus is just get comfortable posting because I am not good at social media. But the fact that I do see traction on there, the fact that I already have, I mean, I've got a decent, just because I've had a newsletter for so long, and when I ported it over Substack, I've got a decent amount of people on there.
Right.
But they don't always, not everyone really sees that because not everyone's coming to Substack. I want to basically my goal is to kind of get more people that are on the Substack platform to subscribe. And that's kind of why at the retreat, we kind of worked that out where I figured out how they can, if you join through Substack, you get the Making Comic, the starter kit and everything.
Okay. Yeah. And is that working for you? Are you getting people subscribing on Substack now?
I've always got subscribers, but I want to get like Substack people because they're more active than just the random people that are on my email from before because they signed up because they wanted the free thing.
Right. That's what I'm asking is, do you think you're getting people from Substack?
Yeah. And I can see that, and it's a little bit right now, but I can see a trajectory there. So that's good. And I see, it's basically the thing is I just want, when I first moved over to Substack from just MailChimp, I noticed, how even had that even before using like notes and things, it had that social, that sort of social media network kind of effect, that. So when I posted the newsletter after I moved it to Substack, I started getting comments and things like that. So I'm like, oh, this is cool. And according to their analytics, if they're accurate, more people are seeing it too.
That's good.
The one thing I got to do, I want to touch with you probably after the show. I haven't figured out how to, because when I do a newsletter, I just do the whole newsletter and I send an email. And I don't think a lot of people are getting that because I need to break it up, like where it's like you read the first part and then you want to read more because I think spam or the spam filters are just going to, if there's so many images and everything. So I think I need to start with something.
Yeah. I experimented with that a little bit. It's hard for me to tell what is working for me or what isn't. I want to talk about Substack for a minute because I think people in the that are watching are kind of interested as well. But
yeah, there's definitely some people in the chats who are talking about interest in Substack, so maybe you guys can wet their whistle on it.
But I've been serializing Heart of Eternity, and so every time I write a chapter, I put it out there.
Which, by the way, just before we get into Substack. So everybody was just listening to Corey talking about being rudderless and stuff like that. He's also in the middle of a pretty incredible series of short stories that are all building into this bigger story that you guys should be following so you can see what a creative considers like rudderless. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I've written 14 chapters of a novel, but I am very concerned because I feel rudderless. So I just want to throw that out there about when Artcasters are talking about being rudderless, we're usually still being like psychotically overproductive. So anyhow, go back to Substack. On that,
I wouldn't call that book psychotically overproductive, but yeah,
It's ambitious.
I've written 3 or 4 chapters a month for the last few months. Yeah, it's a good book. But my initial email newsletter list is made up of people that are there for my art, right? And so, and that was true of Instagram. That's true of YouTube. That's true, like people are not here. People have not followed me traditionally in the past to read what I'm writing, right? They want to see what I'm making. They want to watch animations. They want to look at illustrations. I've taken a huge hit because I transitioned into writing on every platform, including Substack, because I imported a list of people that had followed me back from years ago, from MailChimp days and things. And so there's people that have been following me for the last 10 years, and I don't think they care about this thing I'm writing, which is fine. I don't, but it's interesting because now I did this illustration. I got like 30% more in views and engagement than I typically do on any of the written chapters.
It's unusual because Substack is designed for writers, so I would think that.
But I brought over the bulk of my list.
Right. That's kind of the same thing. I'm kind of not that I'm primarily a writer, but yeah. And Paul unfortunately is going to be fairly disappointed because he's here for the spicy photos. So which I haven't.
After the extra Substack subscription,
that's behind the paywall.
Yeah.
No, that's in a few months.
That's a different site. It still has Stack in it, but it's just not Substack. You know what I'm saying? Anyway.
Yeah, that's not in my current physical form. But Artcasters After Dark. Josh, do you remember when we did? Oh, he took his headphones off. We used to do 48-hour art check after dark. But yeah. So I don't know. I'm not sure, Scott, if that's a Substack thing or if that's a my audience thing, because my writing is not getting much traction on Substack, even though Substack is a writer's audience. People aren't jumping on in droves. I've never had a significant influx of fans, subscribers, followers, whatever you want to call people, but I've never had a significant influx of that. But the writing isn't bringing a lot. And then the illustration, I get that slow trickle of people that find me and are kind of interested and those types of things. Yeah. And so anyway, and I'm not necessarily doing it to gain an audience, but the reason I wanted to talk about this for a minute is if you guys are interested in what Scott and I are doing, I'd like to issue kind of an invitation or a challenge to start engaging with it on Substack, because Substack right now is, I think it's the platform of the near future. I think it's for creators. I don't think it's Kara. I don't think it's Mastodon. It's definitely not anything that Meta owns. It's not Threads. It's not.
Those are all, been pretty much destroyed. Where someday Substack will get destroyed too once they have to answer to their the venture capitalists. But right now, I think it's a ways off. So
here's a testament to it is throughout the years, you guys know, like whenever Corey will talk about like a new platform, I'm always the inherent skeptic who's just like, it'll probably fall. Substack, like I have a lot of friends that write books, and they've been using Substack for years. They have good subscribership. They make a decent little chunk of change from it, and it's just a steady. It seems to be working with its fan base and stuff. So I don't think Substack is like some shot in the dark. I think Substack's pretty legit. And a good other testament to it is I still haven't made one. So I was the last person to leave WordPress for my website. I'm the last person to Facebook. I'm always the last person, on this kind of stuff. So I think that's a testament to what Corey's talking about.
Yeah, Sam says the future of content creators isn't on the Fediverse or Fediverse. No, the Fediverse is that's the term for federated kind of independent things like Mastodon.
Oh, I thought that was a joke about like the future of social media is something run by the FBI, which I think would be hilarious.
Oh, the Fed, right? Yeah,
the Fediverse.
yeah. So, really quick, I'll say this. It depends on what you're doing. I don't consider myself a content creator.
Yeah.
I feel like being a content creator is a little bit of giving ground to people that I don't want to give ground to. I'm an artist.
Yeah.
I'm an animator. I'm an illustrator. I'm a writer, and I screw all of the monopolies. Everybody who has done all of the unprofessional and anti-competitive practices, the dishonest and immoral crap that's been going on over the last 40 years that have kind of brought us to this point, I want to just watch it burn.
Yep.
I could not be more excited for this like slow implosion that's happening to big tech right now. We're seeing the AI bubble. I wouldn't say it's bursting, but it's kind of like it's got like just a slice in it, and it's just kind of like farting itself to death as it kind of implodes. And then social media in the last 2 years has kind of just, it's in the final stages of what Cory Doctorow calls enshittification, which is just this process where things just get terrible. And so it's
basically,
really
it's like a monster eating itself.
yeah. Well, it's like it's like that old phrase, you either die a hero or live long enough to become a villain. Yeah. And if you let these companies metastasize like tumors, like the unnatural growths that they are, growth at any cost, then they become a huge, disgusting problem that society wants to remove. Yeah. And that's what's happening right now. I could not be more excited for that. So I do think the Fediverse is where social media should be, and yeah. I think independent federated platforms like Mastodon and others, I think are really good in the way that they're connecting people without like a profit motive and without like a disparate kind of more organic selection of power structure rather than a centralized power structure. My goal as an adult is just to destroy any collection of power that
I love that
tends to do it. And so I will say that I'm not a content creator. I don't think the Fediverse is good for content creators. I don't think that's where you're going to get support. I don't think that's where you're going to make a living. I don't think it's set up to do that. I do think that it could replace connection and social media and keeping track of our friends and our family and those types of things in a healthier way that isn't addictive. It isn't anti-relationship. It's not anti-mental health. It's not anti-body image. Like there's a lot of problems that kind of come through like algorithmically driven growth at any cost kind of platforms. So I'll say that. But I think when you're talking, I'm making stuff and there are people that want to watch, view, or read that stuff. I don't think the Fediverse is it. I do think Substack has an expectation of commerce, right? So there's this idea that you can subscribe, you can follow, or you can be a paid subscriber. And I think people go there with the intention of, like people aren't on Patreon to like hear people's random thoughts and get in fights about politics and stuff like that. They're on Patreon to support creators that they like. And Substack is a very similar situation, but has the additional kind of social media aspects of it, where it does have a Twitter-ish component to it. It does have a MailChimp-ish component to it. And it has a Patreon-ish component to it. And so I think it's doing all three of those things really well. And I think it's at least I'm putting most of my eggs in that basket as far as where I'm trying to connect with my audience. I think Substack is it. And the other reason I think that is, so far, I still own that list of people. If people have opted in to my email newsletter, they're joining my Substack. I still have their email because they've chosen to give it to me. It's not like I'm data mining or anything, right? And if at some point in time I say, screw this, I'm going home, I can still take that list, like I did when I got sick of MailChimp. When MailChimp kind of metastasized into some sort of weird CRM half functioning thing, I took my email list and I brought it to Substack. And I'll do the same thing when Substack metastasizes into whatever.
I like that idea. I also like what you were saying, Corey, about kind of coming to terms with like being an artist. I think that for me, I spent, like a good decade just like art directing and enjoying it, and that's kind of the ceiling for the industry that, for the creative industry. But it's like, I feel like by hitting the ceiling and doing that for a decade, I realized like I really hate filling landfills with just junk.
Right.
And it's like, and some of that junk I feel good about. Like I made some cool junk, but
sure.
And it looked really good. But to me, and I think maybe this ties into like the theme too, because I think what bugs you about doing like client work, like I drew a robot like 2 days ago for No Starch Press, which is a great publisher, and they hire me to do covers and stuff. I love drawing robots for money. It's fun. And it's nice for the family to have extra cash and stuff like that.
Yeah, right.
I don't feel about that robot like it felt when I was 20 and it's like, oh, cool, I'm getting paid to do art. I feel like, okay, this is cool and I like the client and I believe in what they do. But like, I'm not going to like put that in my portfolio and like, it's not going to help me achieve dreams because like my goal is to make art and I want to make my own art, right? Because I think that's part of art is like expression. So I'm kind of with you on that. And I think that I'm almost going to quote you to yourself, Corey. Because back when we were doing 48-hour art check, and this is something I've been thinking about, especially with the wild changes in the last few years, because after leaving that art direction position, things have been just in flux. Like, and I've had to be just cool with wherever I end up, and kind of calm about it. And strangely, I've been thinking a lot about that conversation we had where you were, I think, quoting Bruce Lee or something, where it was about being like water.
Oh, right? Be like water? Yeah, that's Bruce Lee.
Yeah, and I've really been doing that the last few years, especially the last year. And what's surprising is how quickly everything settles when you're just like water with things, where it's like things don't collapse and you do, or if they do even, you're still kind of flowing with it. So it's not as antagonistic of an existence in that way. And I think that that mixed with the artist in you, Corey, that we all have one shared commonality. None of us are good at abandoning things. Like we're just not good at. Like Scott was describing it, where he has a personality where he needs to be working on a lot of things at once, right? But Scott will finish Young and the Dead. There's no question. I've never questioned that, right? Sure. Just knowing Scott, I'm like, yeah, he's gonna get it done. It's just you can't leave something half finished, like, and I think that those two things will inevitably lead to a really cool creative project. And so, Corey, weirdly enough, maybe you just need to get a little wilder with one of your goals. on artistically.
Yeah.
And it could even be the book. Part of why the book might be feeling weird is, have you committed to finishing the book? Are you going to finish it?
Yeah, I mean the book is. Every time I say this, I feel like I'm either bragging or tempting fate. But
Yeah.
the book is easy.
Yeah, I know.
It's like
I don't want to insult writers, but I agree with you. Writing is
yeah. I mean, I think if you have a natural curiosity and you dive down rabbit holes when you find something interesting, and you've got a premise that allows for that.
Yeah.
I mean, like it's like a Magnola situation where, he came up with this premise where you can fit any crazy monster thing into the premise.
Yeah.
And he loves crazy monster things.
Yeah.
And so there's just an inexhaustible source of
like
stories
a wealth
that
of
he could
resources.
tell.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, I like weird, what if scenarios, and physics and, thinking and stuff and
History too. Yeah.
history. Yeah. And social commentary, and so I happen to have come up with this premise that I can fit, anything where I'm like, I wonder what happened if we did that. That's a chapter. It's not hard. I don't know if I will finish it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure if it's something that I want to finish or if it's something that I just want to keep writing for the next 40 years.
Okay.
Like
I think that's great. I actually think that's wonderful because I don't think you should abandon the writing thing because it's great. And
no, yeah, I'm going to keep doing it.
And the other thing that's great about that is it is a good proof positive of the disparate thing if you're in a collaborative scenario where there's an artist doing comic pages for you. It is like 90,000 times harder to do the pages than it is to write them.
Right.
And I'm sorry to writers out there, but it's just the truth.
We've had some writers in the chat agree with that. I can't remember who said that, but somebody said as a writer, I agree. Good writers are definitely valuable.
Yeah.
But like,
and it's not that it isn't work. It's just like
it definitely is.
You know what it is? It's you make so much more significant mileage in text than you can possibly ever in a lifetime of drawing.
Right. I mean, like I wrote a chapter where somebody wakes up after kind of like an apocalyptic memory event in a grocery store, and everyone basically was rendered unconscious.
Yeah.
And and I just thought, if I had to draw this, it would take me 4 months to get through this chapter.
Yep.
But I sat down and I wrote it in like 2 hours.
Yep.
And then it was done. And it's the same thing as animation and live action. Like Shades, I did an animated portion and a live action portion, and I worked really hard for 3 months to get several minutes of animation done.
Yeah.
And then I went and shot the live action stuff, and I literally just said to the actress, walk over there and do this. And then I shot it and it was over.
Cycle. Yeah,
I didn't have to draw it. I didn't have to rig anything. And then I was like, let's try that again. Why don't you do it this way? And she did it, and I filmed it, and it was over. It was the easiest thing in the world.
Oddly enough, too, if you were like, you know what, I changed my mind. I want the costume to be different. That would take like 5 minutes to reach. You know what I mean? It's not. Yeah.
And it's not to downplay any of those things. It's just some of them are significantly more taxing, physically, mentally, and from a time standpoint. So when you say, are you going to finish that?
Yeah.
It would be stupid not to keep working on it.
Yeah,
I mean, at most, it's a couple hours a week while I'm pooping.
I think that's great. So I would keep that going. Also, just selfishly because I really love it, and I want to follow this journey you're on. It's just really cool. It's a cool world you're building. But maybe another thing to tack on top of that, is again, like, you've had a lot of adjustment and stuff, and a lot of, like, honestly, it's nothing to kind of beat yourself up over, because again, like, if you have to prep 6 classes, your life is pretty much on hold or 5 or 6 classes in a semester. Your life's pretty much on hold for that semester, right?
Yeah.
But now that that might be winding down, maybe it is. Maybe what you're experiencing is just that natural moment of, like, you know, you have your options ahead of you, and it's like that momentary option paralysis kind of thing. Um, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
and the reason I'm having that paralysis is a year from now, I would like to not feel like I do right now, which is like I've made some cool stuff, but for other people.
Yeah, yeah. So that's already a good start, though. That kind of hones down the options of roads.
And I don't know what month it is, but
Yeah,
because I've been driving, but I haven't taken a freelance client on this year.
yeah. That's a smart choice.
Is that I haven't taken a freelance client on recently since I finished
Yeah,
Boopable.
yeah.
I can't remember when I finished that.
It's hard to turn down money.
It
It
is.
is.
It
It's hard to
is.
turn down money. None of us are like super super wealthy, so it's like, but but I think sometimes that's a really good choice. So I'm going to be interested in seeing what your young in the dead is, because I think you do have something like that in you. I think part of it might be just figuring out the format, because you definitely have this book, and that's going to be happening.
Yeah.
But if that's not filling that, like if a year from now you look back and you're further on this book and that's not going to fill that gap for you, it
Yeah.
might be good to consider. Like, do you want to try an animation that's wildly more ambitious in length or like scope, or do you want to try a short comic or a short project, but not as short as, say, like a singular design? Because I think like you've been doing some of those, and it feels like you look at those, but you're not quite putting them where you'd put other stuff. So it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see kind of where that leads. You know?
Yeah. So I think Esoteric Crumble Flux is an interesting was an interesting experiment
It was.
because I loved everything about it, and no one else really did. So
Yeah.
I mean, like as a commercial endeavor, it was an abject failure,
Yeah.
right? I think I sold just enough T-shirts to like break even on the cost of upgrading my Squarespace to be able to sell T-shirts. And so one of the things I'm kind of leaning towards right now is I want to see like this Go Outside shirt. I specifically made that with the intention of like I want to see if I could do a shirt that people would wear, you know? Because
Yeah.
like I think the people that are interested in the weird rabbit holes where I was like, this is how AI could collapse society. This is how bees dying could collapse society. You know, this is how people not reading could collapse society. Are not the same type of people that would wear like
A cool T-shirt.
yeah, like a skull, you
Yeah.
know, melting, and like it was this mix of like really hardcore edgy illustration
Yeah.
and very academic deep dives into you know these potential, you know, kind of like and then they're kind of abstract as well, and so like
Mm.
as a t-shirt they didn't communicate the message clearly. Like
Okay.
you had to spend 10 or 15 minutes listening to an essay that I wrote
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
understand what the t-shirt was saying, which kind of defeats the purpose of like something that's supposed to say something within a couple seconds of being viewed.
Yeah.
So I do have some interest in maybe experimenting with more
Like playing
obvious
with the art of the
illustration.
T-shirt. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I spent 10 years doing the art of the T-shirt, and it was fun. It's a fun exploration. It's a huge challenge where it's
Yeah.
like trying to come up with ideas that are heady enough to attract the kind of people you want to attract, but aha moment enough to like have that instant read is like a real. It's like a search in that, and you know this from doing marketing and stuff. But when you're doing it for fun or artistically, it's like you're trying to kind of reach that level of that like third level of Socratic truth, right? That's just
Yeah.
floating out there of concepts that you can access that aren't overdone. And when you reach one, it's like some of them, I think, that's the one thing I miss about t-shirt design is when you get one of those thoughts, and it's literally the thought itself is like money, and not physical money, but like, creative currency. I think that could be a really cool exploration for you because it's like, it is a fun challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I'm considering.
Yeah.
And I feel drawn to that. I naturally bristle against it because I also don't care about commerce or trying to convince people to buy stuff. So it's like, I don't want to make, I don't know, I don't know. But I mean, I found a much more green and cost effective print on demand system called Gelato.
Yeah, you showed that. Yeah,
it's way better than Printful or Printify from a shipping standpoint because it's like a
local fulfillment, right?
Yeah, so they've just got a network of hundreds of different printers, and so instead of like everything shipping from one location, it's shipping locally, or at least within a couple hours of where people are, and so it cuts down on costs for my fans, which I don't want them to spend a bunch of money, and then also it cuts down on emissions and shipping costs and all those types of things as well. So there's some of that, but then there's also just like kind of what people are talking about in the chat. I also just want to kind of make whatever I want.
Yeah.
Jim's telling me I need to listen to some Rick Rubin talks.
I agree with that. Rick Rubin.
I like his book so much that I made it the required text for my intentional creativity class. So I go through Rick Rubin stuff quite a bit.
The other day I went down a Slayer rabbit hole because I was trying to remember all the PMRC stuff and like the band albums and all of that. But I had forgotten for a second that Slayer was on Def Jam back when Def Jam was like just a hip hop label, and everybody was like, "This is insanity." Anyhow, that reminds me of the Rubin thing, but it is funny because like there was a point in time where people couldn't even envision that because it was such a like kind of uncorporate move. To be like, wait, you guys are popular for this hip hop thing, and now you're signing the most hated band in America. But I do think like Corey, I think when you have like a goal or a direction, I think you have no problem navigating to it. So I don't even think that's a bad option. I still want to push you in the direction of like, why not take on a 200-page book and spend 10 years doing it, and then regret that you wasted a decade of your life for something that sells 4 copies. I mean, come on, it's it's what all the cool kids are doing.
That is an option. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be those 4 copies wouldn't be that much different than most of the things I do. Like, I got a lot of really intense fans that really like the stuff that I make. And beyond that small group, most people don't care, or I haven't been able to reach them because the systems are kind of broken. Like organic growth isn't really available much anymore. Substack maybe, but I don't know.
I think people also like Rubin talks about this sometimes too, but it's like I think that people are force fed stuff that they get used to being force fed, and then they don't even realize they're consuming crap. Like it's like a really bad like unwholesome like food that's just like, but a substance, like a fake artificial food that's been put in all food, and so everybody eating doesn't realize they're having just like empty calories all the time.
Sure.
And you don't really know until you go have like real filet mignon or like something really delicious, and you're like, wow, I've been eating crap like forever.
And to go along with that analogy, your system is adapted to the poison.
Yes.
And so when you do go eat real stuff, like sometimes it can mess you up. There's a guy played opposite my wife in a play, and he just never eats vegetables.
Ooh.
He just never eats. Like,
He's
it's
on
all
a vegetarian diet kind of thing, or
no. I think he's just a bachelor.
It's not
He's
intentional.
just no. It's not intentional. In the play, he grabs some of her salad and puts it in his mouth and eats it. And every night that he performed that, like explosive diarrhea just from a bite of salad, because his system was so unfamiliar with just like lettuce.
That is so bad.
And I kind of feel like
great, but even that's like on a different level.
Right.
Like green. Ooh.
So I kind of feel like, you know, like if you've been inoculated and numbed by corporate media, you know, that they call entertainment, and then you get something real, I don't even know if it processes the same. It might just be such an unpleasant experience to think and feel things.
Yeah.
That you're just like, oh, that was weird, you know, or whatever, you know. So I don't know.
So I guess the challenge is like, kind of like writers we admire, like, because I know, Corey, you've read some of the like philosophy and stuff I have, and there's entry level philosophers and thinkers that are so good at grabbing the fast food crowd and somehow like adapting them to like think on a different level. And I think that that can be an interesting challenge too. It's like trying to be the Clash, right, or something like that, where you have your Train in Vain that's on the radio, but you also have your Sandinistas album that's talking about like a huge American wrong going on in the world. And it's like you can do both. So it's I don't know. It's interesting. I think it's possible. I think it'll be fun to see where you go with it. But I love. Corey, I love your mind, and I love when you put your mind into what you're working on, because it always ends up in interesting places most people don't go, and that's not a bad thing. So don't lose that in pursuit of whatever you're doing.
Sure.
Yeah. So
don't lose my mind in pursuit of this. Yeah.
Don't sell out. You know. Yeah. Yeah. Which
I'll tell you, no one will be interested in this, but I ripped out all of the benches in my sauna.
Is that what you were doing? I was curious. That looked like a porch building project. Is that what the 3D model was of?
Right, and
either that or you're designing the next Dinosaurs versus Mars bots.
Right. Yeah. Also, I'm really bad at following the chat, but somebody asked what I was using. That's SketchUp, which used to be Google SketchUp, and it's now by Trimble. There's
it's less user friendly than it used to be too.
It's good enough. You know, they want you to pay for it, but there's a free version that you can make rectangles out of. And since I'm just making things out of 2x4s.
So that's a map for something you're going to build. I had a feeling that was it. So
I thought I'd save myself some time. And so I did a 3D model of the inside of my sauna and built everything in the 3D model out of cinder blocks. And then I got to Home Depot and realized that cinder blocks are significantly more expensive than wood. And so so I spent 4 hours building a 3D model, and then I saved $65 by ignoring my 3D model and just buying a bunch of 2x4s.
I can see that. I was worried that it would be one of those scenarios where you built it and the cinder blocks were like an inch off in size or something, and you're like, oh no.
Oh no. No. I think cinder blocks are awesome. It was Keeman that was asking. But Keeman, you might like it. It's a cool program. Gary Hodges uses it, I believe, to do scenes for his comic Dinosaurs versus Mars Bots.
Jacob's apartment, I built a city for like all the city scenes with the apartment in it that I could like rotate and move just to reference, because I knew I was going to be drawing this same building like 50 million times. It's a great program, and you don't need to like. If you know how to draw, you don't have to build like a lot. You can just have the shapes and move the shapes. Or you can be like Gary Hodges and like have everything to scale like a crime scene.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay, Pepsi Cola is saying that they eat like a trash can. I just want to say one thing. And Dylan is also saying, I don't like vegetables or fruit
Trash
besides
cans
bananas.
Eat vegetables, okay?
Well, let me say this. There's a really easy, because I also hate anything that is good for me. I just don't like the taste of it. Except when I stayed at Scott's house. In my dream scenario, I would hire Scott to live in my house and cook for me because
Oh, dude.
it tasted amazing and it was all really good. And
I forgot what it was I made.
I don't know.
I feel like, Scott, having known you for a while, I'm guessing that pretty much everything you make is delicious.
And it's all made out of ingredients you can pronounce, and there's not that many ingredients. I was like, anyway. It felt great for the several days that I was there both times.
I was probably doing keto back then, so that might have been part of it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a lot of chicken and salads and charcuterie boards and
charcuterie. Yeah. Oh man,
yeah, it was good stuff. But I will say, here's my hack for health stuff. Find a smoothie that you like, right? And for me, it's cachava. And then just go to the grocery store and buy 10 to 12 different colors of vegetables. It doesn't matter what they are, as long as they're not peppers, because those are just way too pungent. They kind of overpower everything. Yeah. And then you just make water and those vegetables, and you just make a slurry, just make a paste. And then you stick that paste in ice cube trays, and you drop a couple of those, slurry, nasty vegetable ice cube concoctions in every smoothie, and it doesn't really change the taste of them as long as it doesn't have really pungent vegetables like peppers. But you're getting a couple servings of veggies. It's like a cheat for those of us that hate health food.
I agree with Scott because I am naturally like a very bony, thin guy. I've never been in better shape than I am today in my entire life. And part of it is being consistent with working out, but then the other part is smoothies every single workout session. And all I do is like frozen bags of fruit and throw some spinach in there and stuff like that. Because what's surprising is in a smoothie... Again, it takes a lot. It would take a boatload of spinach to overload the wonderful flavor of all the fruit and stuff. So you can get a lot of nutrition in there.
Yeah, and if you put natural peanut butter, I like chocolate and peanut butter, so I do chocolate cachava.
Trader Joe's peanut butter.
Just the peanut butter that has salt and peanuts, and that's it. Mm-hmm. It'll cover most vegetables. Mm-hmm. Anyway. Yeah, so that's
We're giving
Scott,
health advice. Welcome to the Healthcasters.
Welcome to Artcasters. I don't know what the heck this episode is, but I want to hear from Scott. Scott, you're older than I am. Give me some sage wisdom.
Yeah, Scott, how do you manage to do food so well?
I don't want to talk about food. I want to go back to art.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know. What do you think? You've been doing art longer than me because you're a couple years older than me, and you've been doing it decades longer than I have. Right. So what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think in some ways you're a little hard on yourself because you have done a lot of projects, probably more individual products than probably any of us here.
True.
But like you said, maybe you haven't either stuck with it long enough or found the right thing that. It sounds like you're wanting to lean towards something more commercial. Is that
maybe? Yeah, that's.
So I don't know.
But I don't know if I'm doing that just for the validation. You know?
Right? Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah. Believe
I don't
me,
think you need it. I don't think you need the validation.
More commercial. But I think just doing these little experiments, maybe even looking back at some of the stuff you've done, what you liked about different things, and figuring out, and maybe either I like this about this project or that about, and come up with something that's going to drive you to create something that you're really passionate about, or I don't know. For me, it's a lot of it comes down. I'm excited about even though I haven't really done much on it since the retreat, but the new comic idea, just because it's a cool idea.
Yeah.
So
right.
It's part of it's a little intimidating because it is sort of a big undertaking to start something like that new. So maybe that's why I'm kind of pushing it off.
Yeah.
but other than just initial sketches and things like that. But I don't know. I mean, you seem to like the writing part it seems to come pretty easy to you. I don't know. I mean, selfishly, I'd say I'd like to see you do a comic, even if you start with
I'm with you, Scott.
And I know you. To me, I mean, you do all these animation projects, which are time intensive. I wouldn't
animation animation is so much easier than comics.
Corey, if you approach a comic like animation, like we had Yehudi on, remember Yehudi Mercado? He does comics and builds the assets almost similar to animation.
Sure.
If you approached it kind of from that angle, because remember that, Scott, like where Yehudi would build he'd build like animation backgrounds and then he reuse the same backgrounds in like different. I think you could make an excellent, at least 24-page comic, and I don't think it would take.
Or even something smaller, like just to test the waters or something. I don't know. I just like I said, selfishly, I'd like to see that. You've done so much. I don't know. I'm not sure. Or maybe it's
join us.
Maybe it's coming up with some sort of an IP that you can incorporate all of the things you love. I don't know. I'm not sure.
I'll be honest. My hesitation with comics, if I'm being perfectly honest, is I'm not good at drawing people.
Does it have to be about people?
Yeah. No, not necessarily. But if I were to, I don't know. It's really hard to get insects to emote.
Right. I get it.
Or whatever. I
mean, the best other than what this new Transformer movie that's coming out, where it's actually about Optimus Prime and stuff. All the other ones kind of focus on the human characters, where, I think you can create a good story with robots. Now, maybe robots isn't something you like to draw, but I think you can give them character. I think it's been kind of proven throughout all the animated shows and everything like that. So, I don't know.
I'd also say look up old 50s Peanuts. Not the new Peanuts, but the 50s era Peanuts. And look at that template that Schultz was using, like when he had to adapt for his messed up hand, which is still great. But like the early stuff, it's a pretty simple template. And I think with your analytical brain, if you took a template like similar to that to build characters too,
and I mean that's kind of ye old modernity,
Mm-hmm.
I did a handful of those, and cool. It was fun. It got weirdly too political for me to be interested in it. After a while, or immediately, but anyway, I don't know. So I guess the way that I like to draw, I could. There's, I think, Cult of the Lamb is this video game, and they have a comic that goes along with it, and the art is awesome in both of them, but it's very simple.
Yeah.
But it's just really cool. But I don't really like drawing that way, and so the way that I like to draw is so counterintuitive to what I'm able to do in a comic. So I don't know. That's so if I were, go ahead.
So I mean, it's not that you can't draw people. I mean, I'll just throw something out there, but what if they're like people with bug armor? So you only have to draw the people when they take off their helmets, or then they put them on their bugs, and then they battle, and then, so you wouldn't have to draw people all the time. I mean, that's just There's ways to do the things you like, but still,
Watership Down, right?
The reason, the reason where you do everything, but it's Animal Farm or Watership Down or whatever. But the reason I bring it up is not because I'm avoiding that, but for the last couple of years, I've really thought I should just take the time to learn to draw people. One of the things that I've considered doing in the next 3 weeks is just I'm just going to do, 2 hours a day of anatomy studies, and then just knock it out, just get it done.
You learn to draw everything else pretty quick.
Corey, you want me to give you the nerdy art teacher advice on this one?
Sure. Yeah.
the best thing you could do, weirdly enough, if you want to get better at drawing people, is start taking a trip to a local place, if it's a coffee shop, whatever,
Sure.
and just start drawing people as you see them.
Right.
And really start doing the quick contours. It's going to suck at first, but like if you do that enough and you're not doing the long model sessions,
Sure.
I'm talking like go to a crowded place, start capturing people. And
Well,
at first
I've
it'll
got,
suck.
yeah, I've got 20 or 30 pages in a sketchbook of that, and I've been doing that over
That
the years,
could be
but
your project for the next few
That's-
months. You could be like, I have to go to a bookstore and just draw people for an hour.
yeah.
You know,
Well, I mean,
like,
and
whether
it's
I
not
like it or
even,
not.
yeah. And that's the other thing. So one thing is t-shirts and just to, I don't know, to see if I could do stuff that people care about. The other thing is just finally just, eat my vegetables and figure out how to draw people. And I, just draw 20 heads a day. I mean, I started doing that before I got really busy, right? I was doing those live streams where I was like analyzing and breaking down and doing master studies of different comic book artists' heads. I think if I did that for, 2 or 3 months and I put 10 to 15 hours a week doing that, I think I could pretty quickly figure that out. I don't know.
even think it's something you can't or won't get good at. I think it's just a matter of you need to
I just
correct
haven't.
it.
Yeah, I just haven't yet. So that's why I don't do comics.
Yeah, with art, you're always going to figure out what you need to by necessity. It's kind of like
Right.
years ago, you didn't know After Effects or animation,
Right. Yeah.
You were just kind of dipping into that when we all started hanging out. And it's like now you're like almost, I would consider like almost like a master at After Effects, which is nuts.
I don't know about that, but I've been doing it for 4 years. Yeah.
Good.
So I got proficient quickly.
If you were like a young Corey Kerr just dipping into animation and you watched one of your videos talking about joysticks and sliders, would you feel like that was like entry level?
I don't know. Joysticks and sliders is a bit of a hack, but it gets
wild,
you
though.
Sure, yeah, you do cool stuff with it. It's
Yeah.
fun. Yeah, no. So those are the two main pulls that I've got is, and I could also do both, but I just, I don't know. Like I think I keep thinking about Jim, and somebody reached out, and I was talking to Jim about this, but somebody reached out to him, and now he's got this big streaming deal, and he's on this channel, and and he was able to do that because he's done one thing really well for years.
Yep.
And I'm a little bit more like Scott, where I don't have the personality to focus on one thing for whatever. I get really enjoy doing lots of different things. And so I think I'm coming to grips with like, I'm not going to have a body of work that is cohesive when I die. I'm just going to have, I know, but also I'm never going to have like a streaming deal, or I'm never going to have like, a humble bundle, buy all the books that this guy did or whatever. It's going to be like, it's just going to be what. So I don't know. So I covet that a little bit. I think it's cool. I'd like to be that, but I don't think I am. So.
I think you can be, at least. I personally like, because here's the thing. Like Scott, again, you were just describing. You guys have similar personalities, but he like. On the sidelines of all of these projects that he's scattered, he's always had that through line of Young and the Dead.
Sure.
And he's going to finish it. So he's going to have like that like property, that IP.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's going to move on to the next IP, and it'll probably take like a long time, but it's not undoable.
Sure.
And I think like how Scott started on that was a mini comic, right? Mm-hmm. Scott, it was like a little mini comic. So we're trying to get you hooked on the drug selfishly, but you don't have to go there. But I'm just saying comics are really fun. And the first time you finish like a 24-pager, I mean, you've done a comic before. You did the 80 pages of a comic back in the day.
Yeah. I did the first trade paperback, of a story. And yeah.
But I don't know. Like with the skill level you have now, a 24-pager would be really fulfilling to finish,
Probably.
just for yourself, not for other people. I mean, they'd find it fulfilling, but I'm saying, like, I think your self fulfillment would be pretty high from that.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
maybe not.
So.
It might also feel like, I don't know. It's got to be your own thing. But I'm with Scott on that. I'm going to push you the same direction. Talk to someone who doesn't like love comics so much, because like we're always going to push people to comics.
Well, the funny thing is, you know, when I talk to you two, it's comics. When I talk to Jim, it's animation. When I, whoever I talk to is like, do the thing that I do. It's like, I like all those things.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, we each have our own brand of drug. You know, some people it's heroin, some people it's comics, some people it's animation. You know, it depends almost on which corner you're talking at.
Yeah, it's almost like I should stop trying to get other people to make this decision for me. That's probably the lesson.
No, but like I've seen this in action, Corey. Like even at the retreat, right? I think personally, having known you, you don't need advice, right? But you process out loud as you're considering these things. Yeah. And even at the retreat, it was fun to kind of see how that worked, because there was kind of a block when it came to the next chapter of your book. Sure. And then you kind of worked it out with a conversation like this, and within like 5 minutes you had like the whole thing, you know. So it's fun to see that that way of working, you know. And I think that's why it's good to have like a peer group of artists, because sometimes it's just a matter of like verbalizing or even hearing things you don't want to do, where you're like, oh, that's cool, but that's definitely not where I want to go. You know, it hopefully will help the path, you know, get where it needs to be, you know?
Yeah. You know, as you guys are talking, because one of the other thing is like, I have commitment issues with longer projects, because it's like, do I like anything enough to spend, you know, a focused amount of effort for years or months? You know, the ending scene of Fight Club?
Yes.
And
I love that.
A whole comic where there's just somebody that goes around destroying centralized power structures. I think that could be really fun.
I love that. Also,
that might be,
just on a director note, the fact that they picked "Where Is My Mind" by the Pixies for that ending sequence, I remember seeing that in the theater and being mind blown on a bunch of different levels, but also the fact that they picked the best Pixies song. I was like, this is the greatest. Yeah, I love that idea. Destroying corporate power structures is a great idea.
That'd be really interesting. Just somebody who
call it the Underminer. Oh wait, that was already taken. Didn't
and he's got a mask and it looks like a bug.
Yeah, there you go. He's got a mask that covers his face, so I don't have to learn how to do that.
No, seriously.
I know.
No one would question that at all.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And they might question if he didn't have a mask, actually. So
it's true.
Yeah, true. Cool.
Or those corporate power structures could be in like a, you know, with animals or something, you know, like that kind of thing too.
Sure. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for joining me in my therapy session. I appreciate it. We're well over our 90 minutes. So,
oh goodness.
So let's wrap. But yeah, I do want to say one thing really quick where can you go find my stuff? If you're not on Substack, I have a request. Get on Substack, like make a Substack account. You can subscribe to me or not. I don't care. But my request is, interact with my notes. And so there's two parts of Substack. There's notes, and then there's like the email newsletter part, right? And so if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe. But and you can do that or whatever. But get into the notes section, and I will have long conversations with you if you want. I would like to kind of like crowdsource the Artcasters community and translate it onto Substack so that Scott and I can get a little bit more traction. And if you guys are doing stuff, I would love to watch, read, or listen to it on Substack. So get it out there, and I'll commit right now to repost your stuff on my Substack and those types of things. And so anyway, that's kind of my Substack challenge. And if you want to see what I'm doing on Substack and have that get started, you can go to coreykerr.com/book. That's my book, or /email. And that's everything else. And do that. But if you haven't subscribed yet, do that. If you have subscribed and you haven't interacted, just get into the habit of interacting. I'd love to continue these types of conversations on Substack, because I think it's a good place to be. So, and I'll close this out because I want to hear from Scott next with a similar pitch for Substack.
Sell Substack, Scott.
Scott, where can we find your stuff, and what would you like people to do on Substack?
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. So, all right. So first of all, go to my website, circworks.com, where you can, I was going to say sign up for my mailing list, which is the Substack. But before you do that, you can check out my comic book, Young and the Dead, Kids versus Zombie Adventure Story. If you're interested in some of the stuff that I've been making, some of the projects like my wax packs, there's a bunch of them there in the store. Also, I have digital products that help you make comics. I have a YouTube channel. There'll be a new video coming out on the YouTube channel next week that I'm super proud of. If you're a Patreon, you've probably already seen it. So if you want to join my Patreon, that's available. Use the link from my website to do that as well. Pretty much everything's at my website. You can find my YouTube channel. You can find all the other stuff. But if you do join my Substack, if you haven't already, you get the Comic Maker Starter Kit. It's a really cool free digital tool with tons of stuff that you can use to make comics. So you'll get that. And then on my Substack, usually every month or more, I put out a newsletter. And in each one of those usually every time I put out a video, I'll put out one of these newsletters, and it'll have a freebie there too. So it pays to kind of stay on and get those additional freebies. Plus, like Corey said, there's also the notes part of Substack, which I've been frequently posting on. Like Corey said, join that. Let's, we can build a community over there. I really think, to me, it reminds me of a long time ago when I was on Twitter and kind of, what it used to be like.
Before Twitter was horrible is where Substack is right now.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
I agree.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, I'm a fan. So, and I'm just now scratching the surface, and I want to, kind of grow that and put out more content and share more and everything. So
yeah,
I love it.
Yeah.
Josh, where can we find your stuff?
Not on Substack yet. But I will say
soon.
I want to play off of that quote that was put in the chats where it was saying, make the community you want to see. And this is for anyone out there, because part of why we will have these kind of conversations on Artcasters, one, we're friends, so it's always fun to have these conversations. Number two, creatives out there have to spitball and come up with ideas. And to me, if you're ever in a rut, make the thing you want to see in the world, not just the community, but the art you want to see. And tying into that, I'm going to go into my pitch for a book that I did, strictly compelled by the fact that I felt bothered by the fact that people didn't talk openly about issues of heavy things like suicide or mental illness or depression or panic disorder. There's a big stigma about mental illness. So I wrote a graphic novel. I felt like nobody talks about this. When people talk about it, it's in like pretty frilly ways, not very realistic, or they overdoom it, and people aren't usually giving a realistic snapshot of what it's like to deal with those things or what solutions are for those kind of things. So I wrote a whole book about faith and mental illness, candidly talking about that because it was something I felt like the world needed. And similarly, there's Jacob's Apartment, which again was another story I felt like needed to exist. So support those kind of things, but also when you're an artist out there, look for the things you feel need to be here, or the way I like to put it is, what are you on earth as an artist to do? And if you're not doing it, you need to do that, whatever that is.
Awesome. Okay, and if you'd like to, continue to follow us on Artcasters, we have a Substack, which can be delivered on the app or in the email, and the description or the link is in the description of this video on YouTube. And if you sign up for that, you'll get notified 30 minutes before we go live, because sometimes it's on Thursdays most of the time, sometimes it's not on Thursdays, and it rotates between our 3 channels. So best thing is to subscribe to all of us on YouTube, but if you get on that email newsletter there, then you can do that. So jump on Substack so you don't get lost, and that link is down there. All right. Hey, thanks for the lively chat, and we'll see you guys next week or earlier if you jump on Substack. I'll start. I'd love to continue talking. If you follow me and I don't immediately follow you back, send me a note that lets me know that you're from Artcasters, and I definitely will. Okay, we'll see you guys next week.